Have you ever looked at your soil and thought that nothing is ever going to grow here? It's dry, cracked, almost gray, like all the life has been sucked out of it. You push your fingers in and it barely moves, like you're hitting concrete. Most people see this and go straight for fertilizer, hoping to force something to grow. But that's not the real issue. Your soil isn't dead, it's starving. And until you fix what's missing underneath, nothing you add on top is going to make a lasting difference. Welcome back to Seed to Harvest. Today, we're breaking down 7 powerful plants that can rebuild your soil naturally. No chemicals, no guesswork. These plants don't just grow, they work. Some pull nitrogen straight from the air, others break through hard, compacted ground, and some bring hidden nutrients up from deep below the surface. If you want stronger plants, healthier soil, and better harvests without constantly buying fertilizer, hit subscribe and let's get into it. The first plant on my list, and honestly, if you only take one thing from this entire video, make it this, is white clover. This is one of those plants that quietly does a ridiculous amount of work without asking for anything in return. White clover is what's known as a nitrogen fixer, which means it works with beneficial soil bacteria to pull nitrogen straight out of the air and convert it into a form your plants can actually use. And nitrogen isn't just another nutrient, it's the one responsible for lush, green, vigorous growth. So while most people are out there buying fertilizer to add nitrogen into their soil, white clover is literally generating it for free, non-stop, right under your feet. Those small, almost invisible nodules on its roots, that's where the process happens. Tiny underground factories constantly feeding your soil while the plant just sits there looking harmless. But it doesn't stop there. White clover also acts as a living mulch, spreading low across the ground and forming a dense green carpet that protects your soil from direct sunlight, reduces moisture loss, and suppresses weeds before they even get a chance to take hold. Instead of bare soil baking and drying out, you've got a cool, shaded surface that stays active and alive. It also improves soil structure over time, making hard ground softer and easier for roots to move through, while attracting pollinators with its small white flowers, which is a bonus for your entire garden. And the best part is how low maintenance it is. You can sow it once and let it do its thing. It thrives in a wide range of conditions, handles light foot traffic, and keeps working season after season. Plant it between rows, around fruit trees, or even across entire beds, and you'll start to see your soil slowly shift from lifeless and compacted to rich, dark, and full of activity. Plant number 2, Comfrey. If white clover is quietly feeding your soil from above, Comfrey is working from deep below, pulling in nutrients from places your other plants can't even reach. This plant is famous for one reason. It's a dynamic accumulator, which means it mines nutrients from deep in the subsoil and brings them right back to the surface. We're talking potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, and a whole range of trace minerals that are usually locked far beneath your garden beds. Comfrey's roots don't just sit near the surface like most plants, they drive straight down, sometimes over a meter deep, breaking through compacted layers as they go. So not only is it feeding your soil, it's physically improving it, opening up channels for air, water, and roots to move through more easily. But where Comfrey really shines is in how you use it. This is where the chop and drop method comes in, and it's about as simple as gardening gets. You let the plant grow big and leafy, then you cut it down and leave those leaves right on the soil. No composting, no processing, just cut and drop. And here's the impressive part. Those thick leaves break down incredibly fast, releasing all the nutrients they pulled up directly into the top layer of your soil, right where your crops need the most. It's like creating a continuous on-site fertilizer system that renews itself several times a season. Many gardeners even compare Comfrey leaves to manure because of how rich they are, except there's no smell, no cost, and no effort beyond a quick cut. Plant it once, preferably a sterile variety like Bocking 14 so it doesn't spread, and you'll have a permanent nutrient generator working in your garden year after year. Plant number 3, Dandelion. This is the one most people get completely wrong. dandelion. The same plant you probably spend time pulling out every week is actually one of the best natural tools for repairing damaged soil. That thick, stubborn taproot that makes it so hard to remove, that's exactly what makes it valuable. Dandelions drive their roots deep into compacted ground, breaking through hard layers that water and air normally can't penetrate. As they grow, they create tiny channels in the soil, improving drainage and allowing oxygen to reach deeper levels where beneficial microbes can thrive. In soil that's been walked on, dried out, or neglected, that kind of natural aeration is incredibly important, and it's happening without you lifting a single tool. But it goes further than just breaking up the soil. As that root pushes downward, it pulls up nutrients like calcium, potassium, and iron from deep below the surface, nutrients your vegetables would never be able to access on their own. Then, when the plant dies back or is cut down, all of those minerals are left behind in the topsoil, slowly enriching it over time. Instead of ripping dandelions out completely, a smarter approach is to cut them at the base and let the roots stay in the ground. This weakens the plant gradually while still letting it do its job beneath the surface. Over time, what you'll notice is a shift. Soil that was once tight and lifeless starts to loosen, darken, and support more growth. So the next time you see dandelions popping up, don't treat them like a problem. See them for what they are, one of the first responders trying to bring your soil back to life. Plant number 4, Daikon radish. If your soil feels hard, compacted, or completely sealed off like concrete, this is the plant that changes everything. Daikon radish, sometimes called tillage radish, is basically nature's way of drilling into the ground without any tools, machines, or effort. It grows fast, and more importantly, it grows deep. We're talking thick white roots that can push 30 to 60 centimeters down, sometimes even more in the right conditions, forcing their way through compacted layers that would normally block water, air, and future root growth. Instead of you breaking up the soil with a fork or tiller, the plant does it for you, naturally carving pathways through the hardest parts of your garden bed. But the real magic happens after it dies back. You plant daikon in late summer or early autumn. Let it grow through the season, and then winter kills it off completely. As it breaks down in the soil, the massive root slowly decomposes in place, leaving behind a network of open channels filled with organic matter. These channels don't just disappear, they stay in the soil, acting like ready-made highways for water drainage and spring root growth. So when you plant your next crop, its roots follow those same paths, moving deeper with far less resistance. In heavily compacted or neglected soil, this is a game changer. It's like giving your garden a head start on structure before anything else even goes in the ground. Plant number 5, fava beans. Fava beans are one of the most reliable ways to rebuild tired, depleted soil, especially when nothing else is growing. They belong to the legume family, which means they have a special relationship with soil bacteria that allows them to fix nitrogen directly from the air. That nitrogen gets stored in little nodules along their roots, slowly enriching the soil as the plant grows. But what makes fava beans especially powerful is the timing. You plant them in autumn when most gardens are shutting down, and they take over empty beds through the cold months. Instead of your soil sitting bare, exposed to rain, wind, and erosion, it's covered in a living layer that protects it, stabilizes it, and keeps microbial activity going even in winter conditions. Then comes the real payoff in spring. Before the plant fully matures and starts putting energy into seed production, you cut it down and either leave it on the surface or lightly work it into the top layer of soil. This is where all that stored nitrogen gets released, right when your garden needs it most for strong leafy growth. The decaying plant matter also adds organic material, improving soil structure and feeding earthworms and microbes that build long-term fertility. In a way, you're turning a winter crop into a slow-release fertilizer system for your spring garden. On top of that, fava beans are tough, adaptable, and surprisingly productive. You can even harvest some pods for food if you time it right. So instead of leaving your beds empty and exhausted over winter, fava beans turn that downtime into one of the most productive phases in your entire growing cycle. Plant number 6, stinging nettle. Stinging nettle is one of those plants most gardeners instinctively remove, but in reality, it's one of the richest soil builders you can have working in your garden. Wherever nettles grow naturally, it's usually a sign that the soil beneath is already full of organic matter and mineral activity, because nettles thrive in nutrient-dense environments and actually help recycle those nutrients back into the system. They pull in high levels of nitrogen, iron, silica, calcium, and a wide range of trace minerals, storing all of that in their fast-growing leaves and stems. Instead of seeing them as weeds, think of nettles as concentrated nutrient collectors, pulling fertility out of the soil system and holding it in a form you can actively reuse. And the best part is, they grow aggressively, which means they produce a large amount of biomass in a short time, giving you a steady supply of organic material to work with throughout the season. The real power of nettles shows up when you start using them intentionally. One of the most effective methods is making a simple liquid feed. You take a bucket, pack it with fresh nettle leaves, fill it with water, and leave it to ferment for a couple of weeks. What you're left with is a dark, nutrient-rich liquid that can be diluted and used to water your garden beds, delivering a direct boost of minerals straight to your plants. It's essentially a homemade fertilizer that rivals store-bought feeds, except it costs nothing and comes straight from your own growing space. On top of that, nettles can also be used as a chop and drop mulch, cut before they flower and lay them directly onto the soil where they break down quickly and feed the ground beneath. To keep them under control, it's best to grow them in a contained corner or patch, but once you have them established, they become one of the most efficient recycling systems in the entire garden, constantly converting wild growth into usable fertility. Plant number 7, alfalfa. Alfalfa is one of the most powerful soil rebuilding plants you can grow, and it works on a scale most garden crops simply can't compete with. This is a deep-rooted perennial legume, which means it doesn't just sit in the top layer of soil, it drives its roots down several meters into the subsoil, tapping into nutrients and moisture reserves that are completely out of reach for typical vegetables. While your garden beds might be depleted on the surface, alfalfa is quietly pulling up phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and nitrogen from deep underground and storing them in its stems and leaves. At the same time, like other legumes, it also fixes nitrogen from the air, which means it's actively adding fertility while it grows instead of just consuming it. Over time, this creates a kind of vertical nutrient pipeline, connecting deep soil reserves with the topsoil where your crops actually live and feed. What makes alfalfa especially valuable is how it behaves once you start cutting it back. As a perennial, it keeps regrowing through the season, and each time you cut it before flowering, you trigger another cycle of nutrient-rich growth. Those cuttings can then be laid directly onto the soil as mulch or added to compost where they break down into a highly fertile amendment. In food forest systems or around fruit trees, alfalfa acts like a living understory that constantly feeds the soil without needing replanting every season. It also improves soil structure over time, loosening compacted ground and increasing biological activity as its deep roots die back and regenerate channels underground. The result is a long-term soil improvement system that doesn't rely on inputs or constant maintenance, just strategic cutting and letting nature do the rest. And there you have it. 7 plants that completely change the way you look at soil. Not as something you constantly have to fix with bottles, bags, or expensive inputs, but as a living system that can repair itself when you give it the right support. The moment you start working with plants like these, you stop fighting your garden and start partnering with it. Instead of trying to force fertility into the ground, you're building conditions where fertility becomes the natural outcome. If this helped you see your garden a little differently, you'll probably want to keep going with it. There's a lot more to uncover when it comes to building soil that stays alive year after year without constant inputs. So stay connected with Seed to Harvest, and if you've ever used any of these plants before, share your experience in the comments. It helps more than you think.